Shabbat Shalom. We are so excited to welcome you this Shabbat, both in person and virtually. To our friends visiting at home, we are delighted you have chosen to be with us for Shabbat. Please join in turning to page 127 in our Siddur, Mishkan Tefillah. If you don't have a physical copy, if you're at home, please check our website's live stream page for a link to a virtual PDF. As we take off this evening together, I will have you note a few emergency exits for those who are with us in person. You can find them to the back of the social hall. You can go through the kitchen and exit through our religious school. Also, there is a door behind me that you can use to exit, as well as the doors that you came in this evening. (126) I begin with a prayer of gratitude for all that is holy in my life. God needs no words, no English or Hebrew, no semantics, no services, but I need them. Through prayer, I can sense my inner strength, my inner purpose, my inner joy, my capacity to love. As I reach upward in prayer, I sense these qualities in my Creator. To love the source is to love each other, to work to make our lives better. To love HaShekhinah is to love the world God created and to work to perfect it. To love Adonai is to love dreams of peace and joy that illumine all of us and to bring that vision to life. As we begin this evening, we take a moment away from our prayer books to meditate on three words: Olam Chesed Yibaneh. Your steadfast love is confirmed forever. Chesed yibaneh, ya lai 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 lai. Olam chesed yibaneh, olam chesed yibaneh, ya lai 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 lai. Olam chesed yibaneh, ya lai lai. I will build this world from love. I will build this world from love. And you must build this world from love. And you must build this world from love. And if we build this world from love, and if we build this world from love, then God will build this world from love. Then God will build this world from love. Olam chesed yibaneh, Thank you for taking an opportunity to explore outside of our book as we move into prayer. 128, the middle of the page.
נפש ורחמן, ידיד נפש ורחמן, נשוק עבדך, אל רצונך, נשוק עבדך, יאי לי 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 לי, אל רצונך.
Ready to welcome the Sabbath bride, we moved to 138. It's our tradition to recite verses 1, 2, 5, and 9. As we stand on the 9th and final verse, we face the entrance in audacious hospitality, opening our hearts to all those who enter.
Dodi likrat kala b'nei Shabbat Kabbalat lecha dodi likrat kala b'nei Shabbat Kabbalat shamor v'zakur b'dibur echad Ishmianu el hamiuchad Adonai echad u'shmo echad L'shemo tiferet v'litchila Lecha dodi likrat kala b'nei Shabbat mekabelah Shabbat, b'nei Shabbat, mekabelah. Likrat Shabbat, lechu v'nelcha, ki mekor ha'baracha, merosh mikedem nisucha, sof ma'aseh v'machshavat tchila, lecha dodi likrat kala b'nei Shabbat mekabelah, lecha dodi likrat kala b'nei Shabbat mekabelah.
139.
Hitorari, Iva orech umihori, uri, shir daberi, Kivod Adonai, alayich nigla, lecha dodi, בשלום עטרת מעלה, בשמחה ובצור עולם, אור אמוני עם סגולה, בואי חלה, בואי חלה, לך דודי לקראת חלה, בני שבת לקבלה, לך דודי לקראת חלה, בני שבת לקבלה, בני שבת לקבלה.
With our hearts lifted, 142, we dedicate this to angels in our midst. May those who face hardships, it's hard to name one, there are so many to count these days. I wish, and we wish, that angels follow those home, all who need it.
Shalom Aleichem, Malachei Hasharet, Malachei Elyon, Melech Malchei Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Boechem v'Shalom, Malachei Hashalom, Malachei Elyon, Melech Malchei Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Baruch Huni L'Shalom, Malachei Hashalom, Malachei Elyon, Melech Malchei Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Tzidchem L'Shalom, Malachei Hashalom, Malachei Elyon, Melech Malchei Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. 145. Entrances to holiness are everywhere. The possibility of ascent is all the time, even at unlikely times and in unlikely places. There is no place on earth without the presence. Looking above to the poetry, teach me, O God, a blessing, a prayer. Teach me, O God, a blessing, a prayer on the mystery of a withered leaf, unripened fruit so fair, on the freedom to see, to sense, to breathe, to know, to hope, to despair. Teach my lips a blessing, a hymn of praise, as each morning and night you renew your days, lest my days be as the one before. Last routine, set my ways. Lamdeni Elohai, Berech v'hithalel, Lamed tzivtotai, bracha v'shir halel. We rise in spirit and or body to face east towards Jerusalem, 146. One 149, we pray together. This is an hour of change. Within it, we stand uncertain on the border of light. Shall we draw back or cross over? Where shall our hearts turn? Shall we draw back, my brother, my sister, or cross over? This is the hour of change, and within it we stand quietly on the border of light. What lies before us? Shall we draw back, my sister, my brother, or cross over? Baruch atah Adonai, Hamari v'aravim. Moving into the heart of our prayer as we near the Shema, we are reminded of love, of ever everlasting love. 150. Ahavat olam, Beit Yisrael, Amcha avta, Amcha avta. Torah u'mitzvot, chukim u'mishpatim, otanu limadta, otanu limadta. Akein Adonai Eloheinu b'shach beinu, uvkumeinu nasiach behukecha, v'nismach b'divrei Toratecha, uv'mitzvotecha le'olam va'ed, ki hem chayenu ve'orach yameinu, uvahem negei yoman v'layla, negei yoman v'layla. Ve'ahavat kol tasir imenu li'olamim, Baruch ata Adonai, ohev amo Yisrael, ohev amo Yisrael. 152, please rise as you are able. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto Le'olam Va'ed. 154. Judaism is a doing which can be grasped only by the heart. Ve'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha b'chol levavcha uv'chol nafshecha uv'chol mehodecha, ve'hayu hadvarim ha'ele asher anochi mitzavecha hayom al levavecha, Vishinantam levanecha v'dibarta bam b'shivtecha b'veitecha uv'lechtecha v'derech uv'shochbecha uv'kumecha u'kshartam le'oto yadecha v'hayu litotafot bein einecha u'chtavtam al mezuzot beitecha u'visharecha. Adonai Elohechem Emet. Emet 157, we pray responsively. Standing on the parted shores of history, We still believe what we were taught before ever we stood at Sinai's foot. Together, ever we go, it is eternally Egypt, that there is a better place, a promised land, that the winding way to that promise passes through the wilderness, that there is no way to get from here to there except by joining hands, marching together. 158.
Kamocha ba'elim Adonai, mi kamocha nedar b'kodesh, nora tehilot osefele, nora tehilot osefele. Malchutecha ra'u v'necha, bokei ayam livnei Moshe Miriam, Ze'elianu ve'amru, Ze'elianu ve'amru, Adonai yimloch le'olam va'ed, Adonai yimloch le'olam va'ed.
$160. Grant, O Source, that we lie down in peace and raise us up, O our guardian, to life renewed. Spread over us the shelter of your peace. Guide us with your good counsel. For your name's sake, be our help. Shield and shelter us beneath the shadow of your wings. Defend us against enemies, illness, war, famine, and sorrow. Distance us from wrongdoing. For you, God, watch over us and deliver us. For you, HaShekhinah, are gracious and merciful. Guard our going and coming to life and to peace evermore. Baruch atah Adonai, haporech suchal shalom aleinu ve'al kol amo Yisrael ve'al Yerushalayim. $164, rising in spirit and in body. The Amidah will continue on your own privately, belachash, in a whisper. Through page 180, please make your way back to your seat after offering all the prayers you brought with you this evening. Adonai sifatai tiftach ufi yagid tehilatecha. Adonai, open up my lips that my mouth may declare your praise. ever wishing, praying, making peace. Oh, say shalom, shalom bimromav, hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu, יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל, אמן. עושה שלום, שלום במרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל, ואמרו אמן. ועל כל ישראל, amen. Our hearts open from our personal prayer. We take this opportunity to direct our light to those in need of healing in our community. Please turn to 371. Our hearts go out to those in need of healing: Abdel Aga, Susan Bosch, Amelia Byers, Audrey Cohen, Phyllis Fillmore, Rachel Fleischer, Ilona Johnson, Joyce Krasnow, Mary Lestrange, Ken Lijak, Errol Nadler, Alicia Okram, Meryl Perlmutter, Elaine Trott, Paul Tubin, Arnie Zappel, Claude Schleuderer. Continued healing for Lauren Petties. As my eyes meet yours, please feel free and moved to offer any names of those in your life who are in need of healing.
Tony Fiore, Barney Lambert.
Thank you.
Paul Two.
371. Yishebeirach avoteinu mikor habracha limoteinu. May the source of strength who bless the ones before us help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say Amen. Yishebeirach imoteinu mikor habracha avoteinu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say Amen.
It's my honor to invite our board president, Jeff Greenberg, to deliver our teaching this evening. It's such a treat. Jeff will be exploring the nightmare of history, Leviticus, and the loss of humanism in the Torah. Welcome, Jeff. Shabbat Shalom.
All right, let's see. History is a nightmare from which I'm trying to awake. James Joyce said that in Ulysses more than a century ago. Except today it seems that his nightmare is upon us in spades. In Ukraine, in Yemen, in Syria, still in Afghanistan. All conflicts that find their justifications in history, long past, but still remembered and still fought over. Wikipedia lists 23 major conflicts going on as we speak, in places that I defy you to locate on a map. I know that I couldn't. Some 5 years ago, I traveled to Normandy to visit the grave of my uncle, who was killed there a month after D-Day. He died in a prelude to a long-forgotten battle for a hill commanding a road. The German tank commanders attacking that hill wore black, with a death's head pinned to their caps. It was in tribute to the Black Hussars, German cavalry who fought Napoleon at Waterloo. On the road outside of the commune, I stopped at an abandoned 12th century abbey, Abbey Blanche, where an American platoon piled up an entire German regiment at a roadblock. The first abbess of that abbey, she was the granddaughter of William the Conqueror, the last king to invade Great Britain 900 years before that. History is indeed a nightmare from which we're all trying to awaken. Just a couple of weeks ago was the 52nd anniversary of the killings of the 4 students at Kent State. Vietnam was my generation's particular fever dream, but it's quickly been passed over by new generations with their own Dien Bien Phus, Idrangs, and Tets. Has anything changed since the last good war, my uncle's war? Well, the American military establishment has learned that we don't like seeing our sons and daughters die on the battlefield. So they eliminated the draft. They realized that professionals dying in combat looks bad on social media, so they invented the drone, and now we do the killing from Langley, Virginia. But you know all this. I am not bringing anything new to the party. Yet these thoughts, this Jeremiad, have been stirred up on this Memorial Day weekend, particularly by this week's Parshat, the last reading in Leviticus, the end of the Levite dominance of the text. It's a litany of curses and blessings. Do this, you'll get that. But do this, and this will surely happen to you. Punishment and reward. It's a formula of the priesthood, and it was not uncommon in the ancient world, and you'll still find it today. Punishment and reward, heaven and hell. Its intention, in fact, the intention of the entire book of Leviticus, is the creation of a world where God can live peacefully, retired gracefully to his country home, surrounded by his ever-flowering garden beds. It's a world, of course, administered by the priesthood, where they are the arbiters of right and wrong, of good and evil. In effect, its intention is to cement, to codify their power. And this held sway until the destruction of the Second Temple around 80 CE, which ended animal sacrifices and all the priestly ritual. However, there's something disturbing here. Indeed, there's something disturbing in all of Leviticus, a sea change in the whole tenor of the Pentateuch, a radical repositioning of Jewish thought. And I think it's contained in this litany. In the first 2 books of the Torah, there's the extraordinary struggle of humankind with the divine. God hands down his judgments, and humanity argues, cajoles, struggles with the source of all creation. Jacob wrestles with an angel. Moshe's wife verbally jousts with God to prevent him from killing his greatest prophet. And Abraham appeals to God's justice to save Sodom. You might even see the Tower of Babel in that context, as man trying to assert himself in the face of God. If there's one operative word in the Torah, it is hinene, here I am. the stand-in for humanity's struggle with the divine. Genesis and Exodus and the stories they contain champion a humanism that is overturned by the priestly writing in Leviticus, with its judgments so sharp and so horrifying that Jews used to stay away from the temple when these portions were read for fear that they would be called for an aliyah. The great narrative of J and Eve virtually disappears from this book, replaced by rules and decrees. The writing becomes preachy, it's almost condescending. Perhaps, though, this is understandable. It was a particularly dark time in Israelites' history when it was written. They had returned from exile to rebuild the kingdom, and so the great creation and resurrection tales were succeeded by a third act of supposedly inconvenient truths. Eerily enough, many of those pronouncements seem to foretell the nightmare to come. However, do we buy into these prescriptions? Do we believe that plagues and pogroms, the genocides and the famines, the WMDs and the mass shootings from New York to Texas are because we've failed to heed the formulas in this book? Hardly. That belief went away with the destruction of the temple and the end of the sacrificial cults. And yet, during the early days of the AIDS crisis, for example, some evangelicals believed it on the immorality of the gays. And you sense it every time a bigot in Washington goes looking for votes. But still, in my view, something's lost in the passages in Leviticus. The book will accept no arguments against itself. I can't find any tolerance of competing thought in the text. Spurn the blessing and suffer the consequences. It does make you wonder if those 19 children in Uvalde were so totally amiss in their lives. In the early sections of Genesis, 2 books before, Abraham pleads with Jehovah to spare Sodom with this pleas, and it's quote, "For far be it from you to do such a thing. Shall not the judge of all the earth do what is just?" That's an extraordinary statement, elegant poetry that reverberates through the ages. Perhaps that should be cut in stone on the Supreme Court building in Washington. It's the complaint of every woman and every man who has felt wronged by the world, who questions God's part in it and his or her own burden. And who is this woman or man who would deign to argue with the Almighty, who's pissy, unhappy, free-thinking? I think that Abraham, outside of Sodom, is the most sublime of all God's creation. Yet that passage in Genesis has evolved here at the end of Leviticus to, quote, "If you do not obey me, if you reject my laws, I will wreak misery upon you. I will set my face against you. You shall flee, though none shall pursue." Yes, indeed, something is lost from the gentle humanity and humility of Genesis. Leviticus is a sea change in the very nature of the 5 books, a story that has evolved from mankind working to understand his or her place in the world, questioning, battling, disapproving, the very wonder of free will, free thought, and freedom, to the truculent, unyielding, stiff-necked pronouncements of Leviticus. Genesis shows us God and humankind in an evolving dance recital, each working to understand the other. There's an evolutionary quality to Genesis, an unfolding tale. But Leviticus is a prescription, no ifs, ands, or buts. And yet we still read Leviticus with its nightmare prognosis for the world and its commentators playing biblical twister to try to justify it. And perhaps Leviticus is now just history, a snapshot of an ancient regime ruled by a privileged class of priests intent on its own perpetuation. So it's somehow appropriate that Leviticus ends with a haftorah from Jeremiah, the man who gave us the word Jeremiad. And he was an inward and troubled man, and he said at the end of his haftarah, or at the end of his piece, "Heal me, Eternal One, only then shall I be healed." History is indeed a nightmare from which we're all trying to awake. Shabbat Shalom. Thank you.
Shabbat shalom. Thank you, Jeff. We'll take this transition opportunity to check in with some announcements. Tomorrow morning, Minyan begins at 10 a.m. Please don't stay away from the temple in fear of getting an aliyah like in Jeff's teaching. Please come and be with us and pray and study and hear Jonathan Billig's teaching. Weekly Connections with Rabbi resume Tuesday, May 31st. The Merchant of Venice will be a class taking place Thursday, June 2nd from 7 to 8:30 p.m. Join us in person for a class discussion from our longtime member, Professor Mary Warrener. Intro to Judaism is also Thursday, June 2nd, starting at 7:30 p.m. Please join us Friday, June 3rd, for a full evening of celebrations, and Rabbi Yael welcomes you to join the community for a special blessing during evening services. In honor of Shavuot, CEHV is adopting an Israeli tradition celebrating first fruits. We welcome all of our newborns, children, grand and great-grandchildren, our first fruits who were born in the last 2 years during COVID-19. Start the celebrations early by packing a picnic and arriving at the backyard at CEHV at 5 p.m. A special Tot Shabbat will begin at 5:30 p.m., followed by our first early outdoor service of the summer at 6 p.m., concluding with an evening of celebratory farewell Kiddush, honoring our amazing members, Kara Levine Brenner and Farrell Brenner. So that's all happening Friday, June 3rd. Confirmation service will be the following Saturday, June 4th at 10 a.m. Join our confirmands and families as we celebrate our youth's ongoing commitment and dedication. I remember when I was in confirmation class, it was kind of one of the coolest parts of my time here so far. So it would be really great to support these young people. Tikkun Leil Shavuot this year will be happening during Sudat Shlishit Shavuot on June 4th, beginning at 6 p.m. We will have a Shavuot sunrise service meeting the following morning at 5 a.m. on June 5th. Join Rabbi Yael and your fellow learners and seekers at synagogue for our annual evening festival journey of Sudat Shlishit Shavuot as we study and discuss the afterlife. We will conclude the study in prayer with a meditative early morning service at Kingston Point Beach. Israel trip is now forming for 2023, June 25th. We would love your input. For more info, please contact Alexa Markowitz. We have ongoing Ukrainian humanitarian aid. CEHV is partnering with the Ukrainian American Youth Association of the Hudson Valley to send urgently needed medical supplies to Ukraine. Drop-off is here at Temple during the week. CEHV's Food Access and Security Initiative continues. It's an ongoing program. It accepts a variety of donation items. Pick up a bag on your way out, do a little extra shopping, get a few extra heads of lettuce, broccoli, and drop it off at the Blue Fridge. For more details, please reach out to the main office or peruse our website. (587) We face Jerusalem for the final time this evening. Aleinu l'shabeach la'adon ha'kol, la'tet gedula liotzer bereshit, shehu sam chelkenu liyached et shemo, v'gor aleinu lehamlech malchuto, va'anachnu korim, u'mishtachavim u'modim, Lifnei Melech Malchei Hamlachim HaKadosh
Baruch Hu 591 V'nemar V'haya Adonai L'melech al kol haaretz Bayom hahu Yeh Adonai echad U'shemo echad. $595. It is hard to sing of oneness when the world is not complete, when those who once brought wholeness to our life have gone, and naught but memory can fill the emptiness their passing leaves behind. But memory can tell us only what we were, in company with those we loved. It cannot help us find what each of us alone must now become. Yet no one is really alone. Those who live no more echo still within our thoughts and our words, and what they did is part of what we have become. We do best homage to our dead when we live our lives more fully, even in the shadow of our loss. For each of our lives is worth the life of the whole world, and each one is the breath of the ultimate one. In affirming the one, we affirm the worth of each one whose life, now ended, brought us closer to the source of life, in whose unity no one is alone and every life finds purpose. We are with those members of our congregation who are in their year of mourning. May their memories be for a blessing. So too do we weave in the memory of the loved ones who have died in this season in years past. Our hearts uplift the memory of the yard sites, along with you, of Nathan Bitts, remembered by Kenneth Bitts, Samuel Bloom, Charles Brackman Yitzhak Yoshua, remembered by Robert Brackman, Mark Cohen, remembered by Mitchell Cohen, Gertrude Eisenstadt, remembered by David Eisenstadt, Adele Elgarden, remembered by Martin B. Miller, Mildred Heisman, remembered by Conrad Heisman, Frank Lestrange, remembered by Carmel Gold, Marianne Lestrange, remembered by Carmel Gold, Mrs. Rose Levine, Edith Marcus, remembered by Leslie Marcus Dent, Phyllis Pellet, remembered by Deborah Beck, Blanche Singer, Walter B. Steiner, Dora Ullman, Eva Zappel, remembered by Arnie Zappel, Sarah Swan Miller, remembered by Martin B. Miller. Zichronam livracha, may their memory be for a blessing to each of you. It is our tradition, alongside those who are in mourning who may stand at this time, we join them. 598, offering our prayers of Kiddush to those who left no one to say Kiddush for them, the martyrs of all people who lived their lives as a blessing. Yitkadal v'yitkadash shmei Rabbah, be'alma divrach hirutei v'yamlich malchutei, b'chayechon uv'yomechon uv'chayei d'chol beit Yisrael, ba'agala uv'zman kariv v'imru amen. Yehei shmei Rabbah mevarach le'olam ul'almei olmaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh v'yithadar, v'yithaleh, v'yithalal, Shemei dekudesha berich hu, le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata, tush bechata v'nechemata, da'amiran be'alma v'imru amen. Yehi shlama rabba min shemaya, ve'chayim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'imru amen. O se shalom bimromav, hu ya'aseh shalom, aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'al kol b'nei Adam, ve'imru amen. As we move to close the service, please find your seat and reach for your Tanakh, which is a bit of an unusual ask for a Friday evening. We will be turning to page 800 and looking for Leviticus 19, Leviticus 19, verse 18. So this is a piece that I do with Zemer, and I really thought that this piece would be a beautiful offering as we are in Leviticus. Ve'ahavta l'reacha. If you can find it, I think it's about 3 lines up from that right paragraph in your Torah, in your prayer book ahead of you. Ve'ahavta l'reacha kamocha. Love your neighbor as yourself. Ve'ahavta l'reacha kamocha. Ve'ahavta l'reacha kamocha. Ze klal gadol b'Torah. Love your neighbor, love your neighbor as yourself. Same words, love your neighbor. Love your neighbor, love your neighbor as yourself. This is the teaching of our Torah. Teaching of our Torah. Yai lai lai lai, yai lai lai lai, yai lai lai, yai lai lai lai, yai lai lai lai, yai lai lai. V'shamru v'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat lasot et ha-Shabbat ledorotam berit olam. V'shamru v'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat lasot et ha-Shabbat ledorotam berit olam. B'nei uvim b'nei Yisrael oti le'olam, oti le'olam. V'shamru b'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. כי 6 ימים עשה אדוני את השמיים ואת הארץ, וביום השביעי שבת ויהי נפש, שבת ויהי נפש, שבת ויהי נפש. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. 122. ויהי ערב ויהי בוקר יום השישי, ויחולו השמיים והארץ וכל צבאם, ויכל אלוהים ביום השביעי מלאכתו אשר עשה, וישפוט ביום השביעי מקום מלאכתו אשר עשה. ויברך אלוהים את יום השביעי, ויקדש אותו, כי בו שבת מקום מלאכתו אשר ברא אלוהים לעשות. סברי ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם, בורא פרי הגפן. אמן. לחיים. המוציא לך מן הארץ. We give thanks to the source above. Our voices rise in song together as this joyful prayer is sung. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, hamotzi lecha min haaretz. Amen. Shabbat shalom. Thank you for each of you who helped make this possible, to our greeters, to our teachers, and to each of you. We're just so happy to have you, to our Bob, to our Barry. Thank you all for raising your voices together. Have some challah. Let's see.